So that was such a brilliant episode. Two main reasons. One, everyone knows Stephen King can do the dark, the twisted, but people forget there's this whole other side to him of stories of incredible warmth and humanity. If you've seen The Green Mile, weird story, that Stephen King weirdness, but also just incredible, touching story. Obviously, Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption. So there's this whole other side to him. To see it finally explored on this TV show with Ruth just wandering through these memories, smiling at past versions of herself. It's so nice to see that explored. And then also, we knew we were going to get the multiverse explored because J.J. Abrams, executive producer, he loves exploring that. We just saw it recently in Cloverfield Paradox, the monster coming through from the other dimension. Also, Stephen King, though, in The Mist, the monster comes from another dimension. His whole Castle, Dark Tower series, all about the multiverse. So we know that was getting explored, but to see it combined with time travel and time travel paradoxes and especially closed time loops is fascinating because in some ways those concepts are completely in opposition. It's like two completely different ways of looking at the world or ways that the world could be. And I'll make videos of both. I'll put just an image of kind of what these two different things look like. And as you can see, one, it's just infinite possibilities, every second new possibilities. The other is just a single existence, a single life repeated over and over and over and over again where nothing can ever change. So how the chess pieces work, remember in Inception where if you wanted to figure out whether or not you were in a dream, you would just spin the top, and if the top constantly spun, you knew it was a dream, it wasn't reality, and you could wake up. Here, she keeps forgetting whether or not she's in a memory or whether she's in the present time. So when she figures out she's in a memory, what she does is she immediately goes and grabs a chess piece, leaves it somewhere, and then later, if she forgets again that she's back in a memory, not in reality, and she wants to check, she goes and looks and sees if there's a chess piece there. And if there is, she knows that she put the chess piece there as a reminder, yes, this is a memory, it's not reality, and she can wake up. And she uses the term following breadcrumbs to go back home. What's fascinating is that home is really close to death. So as she leaves these memories and goes back and follows these breadcrumbs to what she terms home, that's actually going to death and dementia and things that people find very scary. So it's very interesting that they're connecting home with death in that way. And it's interesting how people can look at things like death, repetition, cycles, eternity, and some people see peace and beauty. Some people see something so terrifying that they're willing to do anything, make a deal with the devil, do time travel, anything to avoid this. And we get this great chilling monologue about that Japanese soldier who refused to stop fighting World War II. And it seems that Michael, he has that quote, death is swallowed up in victory. And he also says it's not your life to take. For him, it's the complete opposite. Death isn't peace, and death isn't a home. Death is something that he seemed to have done horrible, horrible things in order to avoid. And when he hears that noise, the schisma, now he hears the universe splitting off into all these possibilities, trying to reconcile all these different possibilities, unpredictability. And it's interesting, he hears, it seems like pain, and the universe is screaming, God, whoever, this kind of infinite multiverse is causing the universe immense pain. And what he wants to do is create a kind of eternity, a kind of time loop that never changes, and in some sense spare God, whoever he thinks he's talking to, this kind of pain that he perceives. Rather than creating a kind of eternal heaven, he seems to be creating a kind of eternal hell. And Stephen King has that quote, maybe hell is repetition. And it's interesting, Preachers, finishing up this weekend, its version of hell is just replaying the worst memory of your life over and over. But this episode was brilliant. It took it a step further. One, we never leave Ruth's perception. We follow her the entire episode, so it's complete immersion in her kind of claustrophobic horror, where not only is she reliving all these memories and having no ability to change them, but she's also constantly forgetting that this is the past, it's happened again and again. So for her, each time it's fresh, and each time she has this horrible belief that she can change things, even though you know she's stuck in the cycle of just constantly failing over and over and over again. So not only is hell reliving these worst moments of your life, but constantly struggling to remember that you can't do anything to change them, and constantly forgetting, trying to change them, and realizing you can't. And this brings us to these time travel paradoxes we're starting to see explored. So Michael, he tells Ruth, you can't leave, you already haven't. And it's the sense of eternalism is the word for it, the sense that everything that's going to happen has already happened, nothing can be changed. And that ties a lot with these kind of, it's called a bootstrap paradox. So Ruth, she shoots Alan in the future. Now, as a younger version of herself, or sorry, when she was younger, she had this vision of the future, and she heard gunshots in her vision. She got scared. She called for help, and then Alan comes to help her. So it's this cycle where it's unclear which thing is like the first thing that causes what comes first, because had she not had this vision and had Alan not gotten shot, she never would have called for help. Alan wouldn't have come and help her, wouldn't have come help her. But had Alan not come and help her, they never would have had this relationship, and he never would have been in the position to get shot. So it's this kind of thing where you can never find that first initial cause of everything. And then Ruth's grandson says at one point, this line is repeated twice: kill your nemesis, fix the timeline. And it's this idea that problems arise not when time travel happens, but as soon as someone interacts with a past version of themselves. And I did a whole video going into this, but as soon as someone interacts with a past version of themselves, they immediately have created a time loop that's just going to keep repeating, because the younger version has to grow up and then meet that version of themselves, a younger version, but now they're the old version. And then that younger version, they have to grow up and meet a younger version of themselves, but now they're the old version. So this thing just repeats and repeats and repeats. So that's what that line reminded me of. It's not so much killing the nemesis, it's almost killing the person who originally interacted with some younger version of themselves and created this infinite time loop. And then last thing I have a question about, we get these interesting lines where the kid, or I guess Michael, tells Ruth, I'm you and you're me, and he knows things that only she knows. So it's this interesting idea that the devil, evil, whoever, is that a really separate entity, or is it just kind of a reflection of your worst impulses, and is it kind of inextricably tied to you and not really anything on its own, and you're your own worst enemy? I don't really know if that was just a throwaway line or if they're going to get into that a lot more. So what we know, quick recap, about 30 years ago, Henry, who's been adopted by Michael, and Michael's taking him on all these experiments to try to hear God, he goes missing for 11 days. Alan, who presumably has began an affair with Ruth at this point, goes looking for him because he wants to help Ruth out, finds him. Henry's not cold at all. They return to town and realize that Michael has been pushed off a cliff, and now he's in critical condition. Alan goes and sees Michael. Michael writes this note that says Henry did it. The next day, Molly removes his breathing equipment and Michael dies. Presumably, shortly after this, Alan sees the warden driving home, and he sees this the kid, who looks exactly like he does now, in the trunk of the car, and then the warden locks his kid up for 30 years. Warden eventually kills himself, the kid gets let out, and that's where we are now. And remember, this all started where the kid had the scheme. He told Alan, I can fix Ruth's dementia. Again, this deal with the devil, like, I can take away death, I can take away aging,